legend, the Dragon, martial arts master. His body was all strength, his mind was all control, and his soul was never sold. Bruce Lee, a biography special. Next on A&E. From A&E, this is Biography. For February 1st, 1998, Biography with Peter Graves.
Artistry in motion, every move perfection. Bruce Lee created a new form of martial arts and then became the movie star most responsible for bringing the martial arts to the world. Bruce Lee never backed down from a challenge. He took on all contenders, broke all barriers, including racial stereotypes in Hollywood. Over the next 2 hours, we'll be bringing you a biography double feature. Our look at the two most electrifying martial artists in movie history. First, the life story of Bruce Lee, and then followed by A&E's biography of Jackie Chan, who picked up where Lee left off. It is easy to forget that when Bruce Lee came along, there wasn't room in Hollywood for an Asian star, even a master of martial arts with a body chiseled from stone. So, Bruce Lee took his flying feet and fists to Hong Kong, where he created an entirely new style of action movie and started down the road to international stardom. And finally, through his ambition and talent, Lee convinced Hollywood that he could pack American movie houses as well. And he did, until his career came to a tragic end. Bruce Lee lived for just 32 years, but he had time enough to revolutionize martial arts movies forever.
Bruce had total lifetime dedication to his art. He could take care of business, but he had a very active sense of humor.
He was a braggart in a way, but he never bragged about anything that he wasn't capable of.
Everybody just loved him around the set because of his enthusiasm. He kept it pretty interesting.
There's nobody I quite remember enjoying being a celebrity as he did.
He was the catalyst that set that whole martial arts all in motion. And it's a shame he didn't live to see the impact that he had.
He was not just a fighter. Bruce was a philosopher and a teacher.
All type of knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge. As an actor, as a martial artist, as a human being, all these I have learned from martial art.
His passion and talent helped make him one of the greatest action film stars the world has ever known. He was also one of the first actors to successfully bridge the culture gap between East and West. But for Bruce Lee, his personal life proved more dramatic and more intense than any movie plot. And though his style has often been imitated, the indelible mark he left behind nearly 3 decades ago has never been duplicated. On November 27, 1940, at both the hour and the year of the Dragon, the child who would come to be known as Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco, California.
The dragon in the Chinese zodiac is a mythical creature. It has a fierce temper, it has tremendous power, it is quick, it is elusive, it is everything that is exotic, and that's fit Bruce Lee to a T.
His father, Li Hoi Chuan, was a well-known film and stage actor who had toured with the Cantonese Opera Company. His mother, Grace, was a traditional Chinese woman whose superstitious nature caused her to fear for the safety of her infant son.
Because his mother had lost a male child previously, It was believed that that was an omen. For that reason, she called him Sai Fong, which is like Little Phoenix, which is a feminine name, in the hopes that the spirits would think it was a female child and therefore bypass him and let him live.
But it was the name given to him by a hospital nurse that stuck, Bruce. In 1941, as the war in Europe threatened to engulf the South Pacific, Lee moved Bruce and his family back to Hong Kong. As Hong Kong felt the hardships of World War II and the Japanese invasion, Lee continued to find work as an actor. Enjoying a thriving movie career, Bruce's father often brought his son to film sets with him, and by the age of 6, the fledgling performer was cast in his first speaking role, seen here in this dubbed excerpt from Kid Chung.
Here you are, sir.
You like that, Shen, huh?
Uh-huh. I sure wish I could throw a knife like that.
I guess that's when it all started. The director, my father, even my father being an actor, I mean, they all said that he was a natural.
Wait, you can't go out now. There's police all around.
Even in these early films, the boy was showing the kind of charm, charisma, and body language that would mark his later screen appearances.
If you look at some of his childhood roles, there's the thumbing of the nose, and there's that sort of grimace that he did when he got mad, and all of these carried over into adult roles. But that was really Bruce. I mean, later he would say that was honest self-expression.
Despite being nearsighted and somewhat frail as a child, the young actor was growing up to be a handsome, confident, and even cocky teenager. In addition to acting, Bruce also developed a love for dancing, winning first place in a number of cha-cha contests in Hong Kong. But for a handsome young actor and dancer, post-war Hong Kong was a tough place to grow up. Gangs ruled the city streets, and Lee was often forced to fight them. But Bruce liked a challenge and faced his adversaries head-on.
I remember when Bruce was about 14 years old, he always did like to fight. So there was a group of students, classmates, that didn't quite like him. So one day when he walked out of school, they just jumped him and beat the heck out of him, you know. I guess he felt that he had to defend himself.
In one such fight, Bruce took on the son of a feared triad gang member. Afraid of retaliation, his parents enrolled their son in his first martial arts class. Now training under Yip Man, a martial arts master and philosopher, Bruce was instructed in the ways of discipline and self-control.
Beginning in his early teens, he became involved with Wing Chun Kung Fu, which was a form of martial arts. And this was a philosophy that was very much about finding your power and delivering it in a very efficient way.
To his parents' dismay, Bruce's street fighting continued, and the violent nature of his confrontations was escalating.
In one of his last encounters, while he was removing his jacket, the fellow he was squaring off against sucker punched him and blackened his eye, and Bruce flew into a rage and went after him and knocked the fellow out, you know, broke his tooth, broke his arm, and the police were involved.
Police detective came up and he said, "Excuse me, Mr. Lee," he said, "your son's been really fighting bad in school." And he said, "If he gets into one more fight, I'm gonna have to put him in jail."
To rescue their son from Hong Kong's mean streets, Lee's parents made the difficult decision to send their 18-year-old son to live with friends in the United States.
We saw him off, and my father was a very old-fashioned man, okay? He never hugs anybody, nobody, you know. My father actually went over there and hugged him, and that really took us all by surprise, you know.
Now back at the place of his birth, Bruce settled in Seattle and soon found work at a restaurant owned by a family friend named Ruby Chow. But the rebellious young teenager was certain he was destined for more than waiting tables in Chinatown. Enrolling at the University of Washington, he began majoring in philosophy. Now gracefully blending his studies with martial arts, Bruce was developing a campus reputation for being something of a master. Soon, friends and classmates began flocking to him for instruction.
When we first started out, he didn't charge anybody. And he never probably would have, but Bruce used to get frustrated, and so we finally said, "Look, Bruce, why don't you start a school and charge us money, and then you can go out on your own."
In 1963, while still in college, Bruce opened the Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute. But before long, the instructor's attentions began focusing on one special student, a former cheerleader named Linda Emery.
One day we were on the campus of the University of Washington, and he said, "Okay, Linda, now I want you to throw me," and he showed me how to do it. So I threw him over on the grass, and he landed on the grass, and we were kind of laughing, and he said, "Let's go to the Space Needle for dinner." I said, "You mean all of us?" And he said, "No, just you." And I was like, that was our first date, October 25th, 1963.
The relationship quickly became serious, but Linda's mother was not happy with her daughter's choice of a boyfriend. Interracial couples were not widely accepted in the 1960s, and Mrs. Emery doubted that the young philosophy student could provide a stable life for her daughter. Determined to prove her wrong, Bruce worked harder than ever to build his budding franchise of martial arts schools. And on August 17, 1964, Bruce and his former student Linda were married.
That was one time in my life I knew that I was doing the absolutely right thing, that this man was a man of quality and integrity and great love and warmth, and that we were going to be okay.
The couple moved to Oakland, California, where Bruce had already opened a second kung fu school. There, Bruce continued his practice of teaching any and all willing to learn.
He didn't have any barriers of color or anything like that. He said, if your heart is right, he said, I'm going to teach you.
He was one of the first to teach the true secrets of the martial arts to Americans and to non-Orientals. And there was a very strong feeling among many Asians that this was a corrupt practice. This was an improper thing to do.
Within months of opening his new school, Lee was confronted by a hostile group of Asian martial arts masters.
And they issued an ultimatum to Bruce Lee saying, stop teaching Caucasians or you're going to have to fight our top man. That, of course, was the wrong thing to say to Bruce Lee because he loved a challenge and also wasn't going to be told what to do by anybody. So I think the fight lasted 3 minutes. Bruce had subdued him, put him to the floor, and made the man say in Chinese, I give up, I give up.
But winning the fight wasn't enough. Feeling that he should have won in seconds, not minutes, Bruce began developing a strict regimen to revolutionize martial arts.
Bruce Lee took a hard and objective look at the art of combat, and he came away with it with some very profound truths, such as it is constantly changing. You cannot expect to fight in a one-dimensional aspect when fighting is multidimensional.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Lee also hoped that martial arts would combat racism by bridging the gap between Eastern and Western cultures. And when he was invited to perform at Ed Parker's Karate Championship in Long Beach, California, he astonished the crowd with his famous one-inch punch.
He would tighten his fist and just deliver that one-inch shot of impact. But during that short distance in time, he would generate all of his body weight into the point of impact.
And he said, let me show you something. And he turned to Tom, to my teacher, who was then one of Parker's black belts. And he gave him his little kicking bag. He kicked Tom the length of a swimming pool and into a flower bed. I was impressed, to say the least.
But despite his growing reputation in the martial arts field, Bruce Lee was frustrated. Still struggling to make ends meet, his schools were not bringing in enough money, and the future at best seemed uncertain. What he didn't know was that fame was just around the corner.
More on the life of Bruce Lee when biography continues on A&E. A&E's look at Bruce Lee continues on biography.
On February 1st, 1965, Bruce and Linda